Welcome to the Look and Sound of Leadership, an ongoing series of executive coaching tips designed to help you be perceived in the workplace the way you want to be perceived. I'm Tom Henschel, your executive coach, and today we're talking about how to grow your people. Josh was intentional in his life. He imbued his actions with purpose. To him, work was a meaningful duty. One part of his duty that he'd always enjoyed and taken seriously was developing his people. In his current role as Senior Vice President, strengthening his bench felt more important than ever. During our coaching conversations, he had shared his development goals for 3 of his direct reports. There was Alicia, who needed to grow her emotional intelligence. There was Skip, who needed more diligence. And there was Nangam, who needed to think further ahead. He asked, aside from giving each of them a coach, what's something reasonable I could do to help them? Define reasonable, I said. Not eating a ton of my time and is going to get results, he answered without hesitation. Am I wishing for the ridiculous here? Not necessarily, I said. But Josh, I know you like developing people. What have you done up until now? I mentor and give feedback, but it's random. Now, I have to get these people moving. I would love some resource that would make it easy and effective. I said, I have the structure for a development plan that's super efficient. It's just 3 conversations over time. It might work. And it gets good results, he asked. When people invest in it, yeah, it does. You make it sound easy, he said. I shrugged, I think it is. But maybe not. You can decide. You want to hear it? Yes, I want to hear it, he laughed. Okay, so I said this has 3 conversations. I want to start by pointing out something I think should happen in every one of those conversations. Each conversation has to have 2 parts, your part and their part. No monologuing on either side. Both of you are listening in all 3 conversations. Got it, he said. Great. So, conversation 1. Conversation 1 has the longest agenda because there's table setting to do. A good foundation is going to help you get good results. You lay a good foundation by talking about the what and the why. What exactly do you want them to do differently, and why is it important? He asked, you mean I'm telling them my why, or they're telling me their why? What's your instinct, I asked. It'd be better if they were telling me, wouldn't it? They're more likely to get on board with the plan if they see some legitimate reason for doing it, don't you think? I nodded, yes, I do. And I said, you do have your why. Take Alicia. Why do you think she should have more emotional intelligence? Because she'll be so much more successful, he said. She's one of the best leaders we have in terms of strategy. And if she were ever close to that good with people, she would be a superstar. I asked, could you tell her that? He thought a second, then said, yeah, I could. I said, if that's your why, and if you say that to her, I can imagine she might find that meaningful. Listen, I hope she'll have her own why, but hearing yours could be a great motivator too. I can see that. Then he said, can we go back? I feel like we kind of skipped over the what. You said it's what I want her to do differently, right? Yes, that's exactly what I said, Josh. Then I really need to figure that out, don't I? If I'm vague with what I want, the results will probably be vague too. So what do I want her to do differently? He was thinking, so I didn't speak. I guess I want her to listen more, he answered himself. That might help her emotional intelligence. I don't know. He kept thinking, and then he said, I want her to see that relationships are important. They are their own results. He looked at me, asking, was that it? Was that the what? Listen more and make relationships important? I said, does it answer the question, what do you want her to do differently? Is listen more and prioritize relationships what you want her to do differently? Yeah, it is, he said, a little surprised. That's so easy. It felt like I'm missing something. But now I get to tell her my why, too, so that's another part. Okay, he said, ticking one finger at a time. What do I want her to do differently? Why would she do it? Her ideas. Why would she do it? My ideas. That it? Perfect, I said. That is the first half of conversation one, the table setting. She got the what and the why. Now it shifts to action. What is she supposed to do? You're going to give her 2 pieces of homework. The first piece, ask her to imagine what better emotional intelligence is going to look like. Ask her to describe, when she is better at listening and prioritizing relationships, what will that look like? What will she be doing? What will she be saying? The assignment is for her to write as many situations and scenarios as she can. He smiled. I'm programming her. I'm getting her to envision her future. I nodded. 100%. You're asking her to plant the seeds of the new behavior, so encourage her to take her time. Really imagine what different would look like. And then, he asked, inviting the second part of the homework, and then ask her to begin planning. Right now, there's a gap between her listening and her relationship skills and what that future looks like. Part 2 of the homework is for her to figure out how she's going to close the gap. Is she going to read a book, take a class, join a group? The second part of the homework, figure out how to achieve the what. And she's figuring this out on her own, he asked, looking skeptical. It doesn't have to be, but she's not doing it with you. This is her homework. How she does it is up to her. These are her actions to take between conversation 1 and conversation 2. Great, he said. That first conversation, I can do that. And by the way, how long do you think that is? An hour? Oh, I don't think so, no. I mean, if you just talk about the what and the why and the homework, 30 minutes is probably enough. Better and better, he said. So what's conversation 2? Report on the homework, I said. So she comes in and she tells you what success is going to look like and how she's going to close the gap. And your part? Listen and encourage. You tell her the plan sounds great. She tells you her next learning goal. You set the next check-in date. And conversation 2 is done. Homework report complete. Another 30 minutes, you think? He asked. Could be, sure. Then what's a good cadence for the check-ins, he asked. A couple weeks, a month, a couple months? I don't know, I said. You'll figure it out. He laughed. Well, I'm loving how little I have to do here. This is exactly what I asked for. Is conversation 3 the check-ins? Exactly, I said. Your part in conversation 3? Ask. What are you learning? Conversation 3 is her reflecting on what's happening around her and to her. And I'll just tell you from experience, Josh, when people reflect on their learning, they teach themselves all sorts of things. I see it all the time. I bet you do, he said. So then conversation 3 just repeats itself over and over, right? It's the check-in. What are you learning? Forever. Over and over. Yes, I said. Forever would be amazing, Josh. And really, that's all I prepped for conversation 3? What are you learning? I said, well, if you wanted, you could gather some feedback now and then the check-in conversation would be sharing the feedback. But otherwise, yeah. With Alicia, conversation 3 would be you asking, what is she learning about listening, and what is she learning about relationships? He nodded. So let's say I do these conversations with Skip. It'll be the same process with him, except the what and the why will be about diligence. And with Nangam, they'll be about her focus, right? Right, I agreed. He said, this actually sounds really interesting. I hope they buy into it. Josh made himself a little cheat sheet outlining the 3 conversations. He liked the simple structure. And because he was a good listener, he enjoyed the conversations the process prompted. He felt himself and them moving towards the look and sound of leadership. Prioritizing professional development is hard. If I were to poll your direct reports right now, and if I were to ask them to rate you 1 to 5, 5 being the highest, on where you fall in terms of prioritizing their professional development, where do you think you would come out? Listen, most leaders are not 5s. I'm just curious, where would you be? Because it's hard to prioritize professional development. Here's another take on that. I'm guessing you know good managers and good leaders do not surprise their direct reports during an annual review with feedback that's completely new and unfamiliar. Good managers and good leaders talk about their direct reports' professional development all year long, right? Well, that's the ideal. But my clients tell me all the time they have not had a one-on-one with their bosses for months. The meetings keep getting moved and rescheduled or canceled. Well, by the time they do get a one-on-one, they're never going to get to talk about development. That priority is understandably way down the list by then. It is hard to prioritize professional development. The 3-conversation model that you heard me talking about with Josh is going to help you prioritize professional development easily for you and meaningful for them. I want to be sure you know how to use the tool. So in this part of the show, I'm going to give you some tips so you can jump right in and use it. The first tip I want to offer, we created a tool to go along with this episode. It's called the Growth Conversation Map. It's free. It's up in the tools bin with all our other tools. The tool is going to walk you through the 3 conversations. It's going to make it easy peasy. The link is in the show notes. Grab it. That's number 1. Here's another tip. This model, this 3-conversation model, is completely scalable. Once you learn the model, use it with everybody. Here's a tip for conversation 1. Oh boy, this is a big one. This is like the big one. The entire success of conversation 1 and the entire success actually of the entire model hangs on you doing your homework. This is going to happen before conversation 1. It will be the only time in the process where you have any work to do outside the 3 30-minute conversations. But this is the foundation of the entire model. It is you figuring out the what and figuring out the why. Here are 2 tips about finding a good what. The what question is, what do you want them to do differently? Well, how do you find a good answer? The tip is, ask yourself, if I could help this person rise in the organization, if I could help them advance their career, what muscles would I tell them to strengthen? And then, whatever answer comes to you, ask yourself another question. Could I tell them that? I just want to say, I ask my clients this question all the time. They'll be telling me about one of their direct reports, and they will explain a pattern or describe a situation, and they're talking to me, so they're pretty honest, and they tell me about the person, and when they're done, I ask, could you tell the person that? And most of the time, my clients say yes, and the subsequent conversation is good. One tip to finding out a good what. What muscle do you want them to strengthen, really? Then tell them that. Here's tip 2 for finding a good what. Josh did something I liked. His first answer to what did he want Alicia to do differently, it was really big. Better emotional intelligence, right? He could have stopped there, but he focused down one more layer. He zeroed in on 2 parts, listening and relationships. Those were more specific whats. And the more specific, the better, because your what is going to become the measurement for success for the whole 3-conversation process, right? The clearer the goal, the easier it is to hit. All right, that's your what. Now, a tip for finding a good why. Ask yourself, why do I think those muscles are the ones to strengthen? Why not other muscles? Why are those important? A lot of the time, the why is going to be because you have feedback for the person. Change is important in this area because the direct report is getting results that are not in their favor, and you have feedback to demonstrate that. If that's the case, if your why has feedback attached, rehearse. You are rehearsing towards delivery that is simple, direct, clear. Caring, absolutely, and kind, yes, but direct. Don't over-explain, be concise, give the feedback, then listen. That's a tip for delivering the why. Once you've got the what and the why, your part as the leader is super easy. You have those 2 homework assignments to give, right? Envisioning and planning. So ideas about both of those. Envisioning. I have a whole story I want to tell you about envisioning. I'm going to save it until the end. So first, planning. Think about what you're asking them to do when you ask them to plan how they're going to close the gap. You are basically saying to them, hey, look, I know there's this part of yourself that has probably been with you since you could talk, but why don't you go and figure out how to get better at it, okay? That's the assignment. Figure out how to close the gap. I mean, when you hear it, right, it's really not an easy task. A tip that you can give them to help them figure out how to close the gap is suggest that they focus on the goal as if it were a new passion in their life. Have them talk to people about it as if it were something new that they were discovering in their life. And if they start explaining the goal to people, I just bet people will give them ideas. It's also likely, if they talk about it a lot, they will teach themselves things about it. Encourage your people as a way to close the gap, to talk to other people about the goal. That's everything in conversation 1, believe it or not. Conversation 2, listen, it's pretty simple. Show up for 30 minutes. Be the best listener on the planet. Be a cheerleader. Tell them their plan sounds great, because it is great, because it's theirs. They did it. This is them showing you how they are going to improve themselves. Let them do it. Whatever they're going to do is going to tell you a lot about them. Conversation 3, it's your check-in, right? Where you get to say, hey, what are you learning? And be an even better listener. They are going to tell you how they're making sense of their experiences. They are going to tell you how they are developing. So interview them about it. What's different? What's easy? What's hard? Every check-in, every time you have conversation number 3, it's your chance to see how they're managing this project that you gave them. It's a long game. Stand back, listen, and watch. Now, envisioning. Some leaders think that asking someone to envision themselves in detail, being successful in the future, is a little woo-woo. And so they want to skip the envisioning homework. I understand. I have a story about that. I'm going to tell it to you right after this month's gratitude. Here in the United States, we just had our National Day of Giving Thanks, and I always take a moment at this time of year to thank on the air the Trinity that keeps the podcast going month after month. Laura Clark, she runs Chief Executive Management. Laura, thank you. You never fail. You pay attention to the details. I am grateful. George Avellino. George runs all of Essential Communications Systems. Anything that you have to do with the podcast or the website or having a download of one of our tools, whatever it is, George keeps everything working flawlessly. And with technology changing so quickly, you just know there's a lot to keep up with. So, George, thank you. Paul Eisen of Eisen Design. Paul has imagined all of Essential Communications, anything that you see of ours, anything that belongs to the podcast or the website or our tools or whatever it is, it's all Paul. I am proud of how Paul makes me look. So, Paul, thank you. I'm also honored to say that the three of us have been working together for more than a decade, and it continues to be a pleasure. So thank you, all of you. Thank you for making a great team. I'm always honored by people who are in touch and who express their gratitude to me. And I'm not trying to make it a hall of mirrors here, but seriously, I am grateful for your gratitude. Thank you. And I am grateful for the reviews you leave. Reviews help the podcast grow. People have been leaving reviews for years and years, and I am so grateful for that steady flow. Thank you this month, too, from Spain, Sigo Intentandolo, from Canada, Guy Gedrin, and here in the U.S., EJN4. Thank you. Again, I know this is not your first review. Thank you all for keeping the love flowing. Thank you for the reviews over all these years. Thank you. Okay, a story about envisioning. We're talking about envisioning because the very first piece of homework that you're going to give your direct report is to have them envision what success is going to look like around whatever the goal is. I want to tell you a story about a client I was working with. Her name was Helen, and Helen was not unlike Alicia. Helen needed to slow down her kind of relentless push for results. She had to let other people speak, and she had to learn to listen. One day during a coaching session, she said out loud, I can't even imagine what it would look like if I weren't pushing for results. And needless to say, I made that her homework. I asked her to take time and envision, really, what would it look like? 2 weeks go by. She comes back for the next session, and I could see that she is excited. And she tells me something happened during a conversation with her husband. She said usually she was always ready to talk. As soon as he would finish a sentence, she would start talking. And sometimes she didn't even wait for him to finish his sentence. One night, she's talking to her husband, and she asks herself in her head, what if I stopped pushing for results right now? And she stopped speaking. And what she was so excited to tell me was how much she liked what happened next. He kept talking. He told her things he probably would not have if she had been her usual self. Helen told me she felt like a bit of a magician. By not talking, she heard things she otherwise wouldn't have. So there, in our coaching session, she started envisioning with me what it would look like to do this with her boss, what it would look like to do this with her team, what it would look like to do it with her kids. By the end of our entire coaching engagement, Helen told me she was envisioning to herself every morning in the mirror. She told me she would talk to herself and she would envision this strong woman that she aspired to be. And she found that during the day, she could begin to access it. And people felt the shift in her. That story, to me, is the reason why you don't skip the envisioning homework. Helen, believe me, is a 100% concrete thinker. She is the last person to believe in anything woo-woo. But there she was talking to herself in the mirror in the mornings. Envisioning made a difference. I hope all those tips make the 3-conversation model come to life for you. I hope you'll grab the PDF. The link is in the show notes. And more than anything, I hope the model works for you and your people. If you need help, please reach out to me. Again, the link is in the show notes. You can also keep digging into the tools that we have throughout the archive. This episode is tagged in 3 categories: feedback, leadership, management skills. 5 episodes that you might listen to are coaching your people, how to coach your people, how to manage defensive people, leadership and listening, and understanding feedback. I hope you have a great end to your year and a terrific start to 2026. 2026 is going to be our 18th year podcasting. I find that amazing, but I could not do it without you. Okay, that's it for me. Until next time, I'm Tom Henschel. Thanks so much for listening.